This is Jody Lemieux, your spiritually aligned CEO, podcast host, and you're listening to Conversations with Jody, your one divine guidance system, giving your mindset and business a spiritual facelift, tapping into energy, gaining inspiration, and up-leveling your life to unleashing your infinite potential. In today's episode, you're going to hear Mark Shearer, founder and CEO of Encompass Life. Mark has developed the quantum leap technique, and you're in for a real treat as to why his coaching is different from all the other coaches out there. Welcome, Mark. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you. And love your introduction, by the way.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Yep. So, where do we start here with the quantum leap technique? What we
That's a
should,
great question. Why do you feel that the quantum leap technique has revolutionized your coaching?
yeah, I've studied consciousness for about 35 years, did a lot of different modalities, and every modality I was in was always about, you know, don't think negative thoughts, think positive thoughts. I mean, and it was clunky as I was managing my thoughts all the time, trying to listen to them. Like, what's all this? Pardon me, I'm stuttering right now. I can do this. All right. So the quantum leap technique, all the other modalities I've been involved with, all the things were about very mental aspects of coaching. Uh, don't think negative thoughts, think positive thoughts, and so I was always up in my head trying to monitor that. With the quantum leap technique, what we do here, rather than trying to change thoughts and trying to manage that, we change feelings first. And what we're doing here is we're changing our relationship to God, which has a different feeling come in. The We live in this 3D world of positive and negative, good and bad. And if you look back in the scriptures, everything we do here is based in scriptures or spiritual law. And the story of Adam and Eve talks about when Adam and Eve fell from the grace of God, they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right and wrong. So whenever I was a kid and I read that story, I was a little pissed about God, honestly. I read that story and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this God thing that's because Adam and Eve ate from the tree, all humanity's like screwed, you know? And so I got a little upset. You know, a little kid get to read that, like, get a little upset about that. And as I started studying consciousness, I realized in each and every moment I have the same conundrum that was presented to Adam and Eve of whether I ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right or wrong. I began to understand it mentally. I didn't understand the ramifications of it in my life. And as I began to develop this technique, I noticed that if I was making anything wrong or right in my own consciousness, my intuition would be shut off or greatly diminished. And instead of being able to find solutions to issues, I only could see what was wrong, and I was trying to correct the issues from the same thinking that got me into the issues. If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, Einstein said, to solve the problem, you got to the thinking that produced the problem, you have to change the thinking to solve the problem. So you had to be in a wholly different mindset to create a solution. And what we do here is more of a solution, SOU, solution, right? Instead of just a mental construct. So it's a very, very different process. People who do this, they say their intuition goes up 20, 30x. Um, it also affects emotional intelligence, which is really fascinating. Um, and how we describe emotional intelligence here is if maybe Joe, you ever get triggered, maybe you shut down, or maybe you lash out, or walk out of the room or something, or just go deer in the headlights, right? You ever had that experience?
Oh, yes. I've had
Oh,
that experience. Yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
me too. Like a few minutes ago, actually. And um, so with this system, it's a real quick, easy way to get back on track, and have instead of fishing for an answer, just have the information just come out. So it's a really different, really fast way to produce results.
And I love the way that we speak. It creates pictures in our mind So I love the illustration that you just used about storming out of a room. You're paralyzed by your emotions. One thing that I've recognized for myself in creating images, I recognize that my 3D, what I physically was living in, was not what I desired. What I was desiring was this inner feeling of joy and peace and happiness. And I could attain and feel that and experience that in a calm state, in a meditative state. And so for me, I was wondering, why is it that I can feel this way in a calm and sleeping kind of meditative state, but not bring it into my physical state?
Yeah.
And so I like to use the image of a plane ride, if I may just share this story
Yeah,
with you,
yeah.
if that's all right. So the difference between living in our 3D world and living in our what I call the infinite realm is like a plane ride. Most of us have experienced being on a plane and having turbulence. And so for me, understanding that going from point A to point B in a plane condenses time frames. However, if my body and I focus in on the turbulence while I'm in the plane, for me, the time gets longer. And so time just shifts. However, if I were to be in that plane experiencing physical turbulence, but staying in that state of getting to my end result and feeling calm and ease and knowing that I'm going to arrive there in a peaceful state, time just doesn't exist. It just zips by really quickly. So I love that image that you're creating for the listeners about when you're having your emotions take over, it sends you into a different state of either paralysis analysis, or it shuts you down completely, and your mind just cannot wire and fire in order for your intuition to kick in and give you solutions. Like, I love what you said, SOUL, solutions. So that's just a little bit of an image that I like to share with people, the difference between 3D and 4D, and staying
Yeah.
in that state in order to condense time frames.
Well put. Um, and you're talking about our language and creating pictures. Um, we do it both ways. So our language can create pictures, and I can speak in such a way that I'm conveying and building a picture. And when I'm doing that, if I'm talking to my clients or audience, what that's also doing is that's activating that person's pineal gland. If the pineal gland is shut off, they can't do that. By the way, they don't have the capacity to be able to speak and create pictures. We do here. We language in such a way that we create pictures, but also we have. Sometimes that's to me is like conjuring. Like I'm intentionally trying to create a picture with my language, or what we can do here is just go to a feeling without having any idea of what's going to be available at the particular frequency, and just go to a place. Just go imagine being at 100 times greater ability to have to give and receive love, 100 times greater level of success. Um, the quantum leap technique, what we're doing here, if I ask people, how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Some people will go 6, some people go 4, some people go 8. Sometimes people will go 10 and they'll shake their head no. So they want to be a 10, but their body's saying no to it. And I said, well, if you were a 6, if you could get to an 8, you'd be doing pretty good. Yeah. They go, oh man, could you get me to an 8? I said, well, yes, I can. However, that's really boring. And I suggest you go somewhere else to have that done. What we do here, rather than operate in the 1 to 10 scale of what you believe your 10 is, we jump scales, and there's another scale above this 1 to 10 scale that has 10 times the amount of love and enthusiasm available in it. Another one above that at another 10 times, so it goes 10, goes up multiples of 10. And it's the same thing with success. If somebody has a business that's capped out, hit their glass ceiling, and maybe they've worked with other coaches, maybe they've been implementing systems, they're doing everything right, and still not producing that breakthrough result they choose to have, then that's a particular internal conversation. It may have something to do with anger or resentment stuff inside the person, because if they have anger and resentment, that may have motivated them to prove something that they can reach a level of success. But anger and resentment only is going to get you so far, and then it's going to glass ceiling out. So you have to go to a new level to be able to. You have to go and find all that stuff that's limiting you inside, clean it up, and then the only thing that's going to really take you up is love. The only thing that's really going to have you present breakthrough result is love. And this is from a guy who couldn't say the word love 20 years ago, by the way.
That's really impressive that you have revolutionized the way you speak, the way you express yourself, and you've given people an opportunity to do that themselves.
Um, and this is so quick. A while ago, I was taking notes when you were speaking to. You were talking about, why can't I do it when I'm meditating, and why can't I do it when walking around a daily life? So if every word we speak, which I believe and I'm embodying it to greater and greater levels, if I ask that question, I'm gonna get a whole bunch of answers of why can't I? So I noticed in Scripture it says, "Ask and you shall receive." So every time I'm asking a question, I'm receiving answers from the universe. Most people ask really stupid questions, and when they're asking a stupid question, they're asking it also from a place of hate. Like why can't I go to the next level of my business? Why can't I have the perfect relationship? Why can't my wife do what makes me happy, or whatever that is, right? And if you ask that question, you're going to get the subconscious mind is going to bombard the conscious mind with a whole bunch of answers to that question. So if you can change your question to go, wow, what does my life look like at a 10 times or 100 times greater levels of love and enthusiasm? But you have to give yourself the feeling of it first before you can start to mentally even begin to get a picture. Don't try to conjure it up at all. Like, leave it as a blank slate and just give it to yourself in your feeling world, and then a picture is going to materialize for you. And then
Oh,
you
that's so beautiful. It's like a reverse engineer. You're
reverse
taking it
engineer
from the feeling aspect rather than the
first.
language aspect of creating the feeling and matching it with language.
Yep. And fast and I've studied language with a number of different teachers, and a lot of the teachers were, don't say want, say choose, don't say this, say this. They had all these rules around all these phrases, and to work with somebody over a period of time to have them get the language, using language consciously, it can take 6 months, a year, sometimes longer, just depending on the person and their stronghold resistance, right? However, when people begin to feel love at a grander and grander, keep going feeling love greater and greater, their language cleans up immediately. I mean, it's an instantaneous change in the way the person languages themselves. For example, the word not.
Hmm.
A lot of people will speak a high percentage of nots in their life. I don't like this. I don't want this. I don't like this. I don't like that. Um, I can't do this. When somebody has a high percentage of knots, they also have a high level of anxiety in their life. It's a direct correlation between the word knot and anxiety. And it's also a sign of suppressed anger and resentment. And it comes from a trauma. So once we can find that trauma and have that person find the benefit in it, find the gold inside the trauma, that person's language patterns will shift immediately. And the funny thing is, they may not even know they're aware of the shift. It just will occur naturally. And I just use the word not, but when I use the word not, I use it as comparison. In other
Hmm.
words, I don't like chocolate, I do like vanilla. If I leave a not in my consciousness, that's not is going to manifest and produce anxiety, but it's always a conscious choice of what I leave on my screen. It's like playing Pong. If you leave the Pong game on, and you're probably too young for that, but if you leave the Pong game on the old TVs, if you left it on, it would burn into the screen. So,
No, I know exactly what you're
okay.
talking about. Burning on the screen, it leaves an impression, an
Yep.
imprint.
Yep.
Hmm.
And it's kind of being lazy in their language.
Right.
Like, you'll clean up your mess, right?
So tell me a little bit more about, or our listeners, the quantum leap technique and how that developed over time for you to the point where you recognized um, the impact that it has. You're just speaking so eloquently about language, and it's not necessarily language first, it's a feeling first. Where was that shift in your own personal life where you recognize that the feelings first and then
Oh
the
boy.
language?
Um, hmm. I was studying conscious, but um, I had numerous companies around, and one of the things I would do if something would go wrong in the company or something would, something would happen, I'd go, well, F me to tears, but I would say it. And I thought it was funny. Well, after years of saying that, the way we speak has a cumulative effect on us. So I noticed my issues kept getting bigger, and I would kind of like poo poo them, like, oh, whatever, F me to tears on that, ha 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 ha, funny funny. And a friend of mine, back in 2008, I believe it was 2008, um, was working for me. He embezzled a whole bunch of money, and it was really, really, really tough time in my life. And I mean that decree came true for me, and it woke me up. And I went, oh my God, I've been saying this, unconsciously, and I thought it was funny. And I began to realize even every word, even in jest, is a prayer coming in a manifestation. And I went, oh my gosh. I went back to some language books and started looking at things and like really started to notice language. And it also was coming through some really a tough time physically. I had ruptured disc in my back, frozen shoulders. I had a bunch of things the doctors couldn't heal at the time. A lot of pain, couldn't walk. Um, so I was going through some really dark times in my life back then as well, and hated the pain. Hated the pain. And as I began to come out of the pain, I noticed I had room in my head. So instead of going from hating the pain, I started noticing, wow, pain is really cleansing. This pain is really cleaning me up. Instead of me focusing on all these worries and stuff, as the pain would begin to release, begin to shift, I noticed I started getting grateful for that new space there. I remember for me to crawl, I couldn't walk, I had to crawl. So for me to crawl from my bed to the bathroom, it would take sometimes 30 minutes or longer to stand up to pee.
Wow.
So I remember when I started to be able to stand, like being able to walk and stand up to pee, I was like, oh my God, this is great. Oh my God, this is wonderful. I can actually walk and stand up to go to the bathroom. Wow, what a shift. And that's when my intuition really started to kick in, was as this pain began to leave. Like I could shake somebody's hand sometimes and see a movie of their life. I mean, just
Interesting.
all kind of weird things were starting to come in for me. And I'm really grateful for all this, everything I've been through, including the pain. Not so much fun while I was in it, but now it's like, wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. Got my attention.
Yes, it does get your attention, doesn't it? For
Yes, it
sure.
does.
I'm going to pause this in the conversation right now because I know our listeners, whether they're in business or whether they're struggling in their personal life, how can they reach out to you, Mark? What's the best way to find
Yeah,
you?
the easiest way to reach out to me is mark@encompasslife.com.
Okay.
And if you could put in Jody in the
Yes,
subject matter, that would be great.
absolutely.
That way I know where you're coming from, and I can call Jody and go, thank you so much. And yeah, and we have Encompass Life. We do. Can I do a little plug here?
Yeah, of course. Go for
Cool.
it.
Yeah. So Encompass Life started Encompass Life about 5 years ago. Um, I was working with clients, didn't even have a website for a long time, and I had other companies I was running as well. But people were referring people to me for health issues, for business issues, and they're producing breakthrough results. And so my clients were going, "Hey, where can I learn how to do what you're doing?" And there's really no other place doing what we're doing besides what we're doing here. So I started to develop a school and I developed a university. Beta tested a bunch of this stuff over the years, and we have an online school that teaches people to become coaches, or it's also leadership training, like really, really, really high level leadership training. So if you desire to lead your company to new levels, if you have issues with losing your cool sometimes, or shutting down, or getting flustered in front of your team members, great program for you to really break through those types of resistance and really produce a breakthrough result. So, yeah, we have an online school, and I deliver classes as well, in-person classes and online classes, and I have a whole team of coaches now who are doing this as well.
Oh, that's great. Ah,
Thank you. Thank
so amazing. I love
thank you.
that you're just expanding this consciousness, this understanding that our feelings really matter. And more so, not just our feelings, but the way we express ourselves.
Yeah.
I truly believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and the vibration that we speak in, the vibration that we send out, manifests in our life. So for me, Conversations with Jody is that.
Yeah.
It's understanding that our feelings really matter. And if you're not aware of how you're moving, you're not aware of what you're speaking, then you're just creating the life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to speak personally. That's the way I was living prior to understanding this material.
Yeah.
Is I was living from my five senses. Every time I looked around me, I was frustrated. Like I was so unhappy with my results, and I'm like, what is it? And I kept seeking outside of myself to find the solution. And it wasn't until I went inward and really understood that what I was speaking was showing up in my physical life.
Yeah.
And then to then deepen the understanding, not just speaking, but feeling. So for many years of my life, I had suppressed so many feelings, and it showed up everywhere. Like, showed up in my communication with my spouse, with my kids, at school. I had a smile, but I could just feel my body just was not in alignment with my soul and what I truly wanted.
Yeah.
I was frustrated.
Yeah.
So releasing that over the years, and the quantum leap technique is incredible
Yeah.
because it's
And
just resonating with me so much that when we speak, it's really a mirror reflection of our beliefs,
yeah.
but more so the feeling behind what we're actually saying. And if you can become aware of that, man, your life's going to change in an instant, in a quantum instant. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And it's amazing how the kids reflect all this and all the manifest. If you're manifesting things you hate, it's because you have hate inside you, and it's just to let you know you have hate inside you. There's no, good, bad, right, or wrong to this or to punish you. It's just, it's it's a to me it's like a loving God saying, "Hey, just let you know you got a little hate going on inside you because you're producing results based on hate." And when people can begin to see that and take all the good, bad, right, wrong off their stuff,
Yeah.
and and one more thing, one of the things we do here is people are looking to produce miracles in their life, and we call what we do here is we have a gift called the gift of co-creation. Other people call it the law of attraction, but I like the way the gift feels better than the law, and it makes sense within our model. So if somebody's producing, um, let's do this, somebody's producing a karma in their life, what they're doing, a karma in our system is an unconscious use of the gift. An unconscious use of the gift produces karma. A conscious use of the gift produces a miracle. And people, oh my gosh, I've got a miracle here, and this isn't. But the person is really missing out because the gift itself is the miracle. And when they can begin to understand how the gift works, and the gift is the miracle, it's just whether you learned how to use it or not. Oh, I guess did I share this with you before, Jody? Just let
Yes.
you know.
Okay, Mark.
While we were on the call, I just had a gift delivered to your house.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. It's a $500 million Mercedes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, in the color, in your favorite color, whatever that is, it's going to be in your favorite color. Now imagine if you really thought that was true, right? You'd
Right.
be you'd be out the door. And I go, Jody, be careful. It's got a 5,000 horsepower motor, and your husband would be out the door with it too, right by now. I said, Jody, be careful because if you hit one button, it's gonna fly. If you hit another button, you're gonna do space travel. If you hit another button, you're gonna do multiples of the speed of light. And you get in a car, you didn't hear half of what I told you. You get in a car and you hit a button, and all of a sudden you run into Pluto and you start cussing me out. What's the lesson in the story?
The
What, what's
lesson in
what's
this,
what's the analogy? In other words,
the analogy is it's the gift. It's not what you receive in the material, it's in the actual receiving of the love.
sorta. Here's how what I'm equating this to for me is we get we come in when we have this beautiful gift, $500 million Mercedes, $500 million gift of co-creation. We don't have a clue of how to use it. No one trained us in the operation of this beautiful gift. So we get in it. We create something, and it's not what we like, And instead of taking accountability for it, we blame the giver of the gift. In other words, we blame life, we blame God. And when we go into that modality, then stuff really compounds upon us. So it's about consciously learning how to use this wonderful gift so you can be efficient with it.
Oh
So
my goodness, right there.
that's it.
Co-creation, beautifully
So,
described. Thank you,
well,
Mark, for
you're
that
welcome. Thank you.
analogy. That was really powerful message right there.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Good question.
You still talk? You still choose to record, or how much longer you choose to do this, or
We will just conclude here and yeah. With
cool.
what message would you like to leave the listeners with? What's your one final thought?
So one final thought: most people, um, they take pictures, mental snapshots of things they hate in life or things they don't like. May it be it a spouse's action, be it something your kids are doing, be it your bank account, be it a team member at work. They take pictures of these snapshots that they don't like, and they hope that they store it in their consciousness. And when they do that, they become bitter. And when they're talking to the person, they have that front and center. If you can do one thing, and the one thing you can do is you start to say, speak only what you love, and also start taking snapshots about what you love about your person, about maybe your spouse or your child, and then convey when you tell that person you love them or you tell your employee you appreciate them. Have those snapshots in your consciousness before you give that compliment. It will change everything in your life.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Mark, for your time today. Thank you to my listeners for staying tuned in. Once again, conversationswithjody.com. Feel free to hop on over to my website, listen to Conversations with Jody. And Mark, again, thank you for your time today. And I appreciate the valuable lessons that you've taught people to live a fulfilled and happy life full of love.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Jody.
You're welcome.